then he has one Terrastodon.
Okay.
We saw yesterday, like, Terrastodon can be the perfect card for many situations. There's sometimes you play it and you just can't win. He has a Sphinx of the Steelwind, which is about the best card you could possibly have against Zoo decks or red decks. He has an Inkwell Leviathan, which is great against the blue-based control decks. And he has a Blazing Archon, which just basically holds some dredge players and things like that.
Now, remind me, Blazing Archon, who can't attack?
You can't attack.
Oh, you... Darn it. Do you like rhetorical questions like that?
Love rhetorical questions like that. He also has some Null Rod action in his sideboard.
Null Rod is a really awesome card. On the other side of the board, on our left on the screen, we have William Yowell, and his Merfolk list is basically the kind of really consistent upgrade that we've seen for most of the Legacy era, which is 15 Lords. He's skimping on one Merfolk Sovereign less than the full 16. So that means he's got Lord of Atlantis, Coilhelm Commander, Marrow Regery, and 3 Merfolk Sovereign. And then the usual suspects, and he's also including 3 Standstill. Now, a lot of people, like say for example with Land Still, will play Standstills in a more controlling deck, which I've always found a little bit strange. Playing it in an aggressive deck though, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. You're likely to have some kind of presence on the board, then drop a Standstill and have it really be just Ancestral Recall waiting to happen.
If you can create a board presence before you... if you can create a board presence before you play a Standstill, it's very hard to not Ancestral. Hard to get back on the board without playing spells.
Okay, here we have Happy. Careful study. There's some Ionas in hand, and all it will take is a Reanimate to really make this a lopsided game. I can't quite tell that first turn play, what that is. The logo is right there on top of it. Can you see what that card is that William Yowell has in play?
I believe it's an island.
Below, you got
a Tempest Island.
Get your phone.
No, aside from that,
Draw, then discard, or yeah, draw discard. So
I think it's an Aether Vial.
just tag
is it an Aether Vial? Okay.
So we see. I actually could not see that it was an Aether Vial, but.
Seems an indicator.
Probably an Aether Vial.
The thing about playing really aggressively into fish decks is that there's kind of this double bind that you're in. You don't want to get hit by a daze, but at the same time, if you wait around, they're just going to be more likely to draw one of their many awesome counterspells. 4 Force of Will, 4 days, 2 Spell Pierce. Those are all problematic.
Spell Pierce is really good.
Yeah. The other thing that is really exciting about a Merfolk deck is the amount of damage that it is able of mustering onto the board with very little, that actually was cast. In terms of, because of the Aether Vial, you can drop down something like a Silvergill Adept, and then just sit behind your counterspells and slowly drop into play Lords as the game passes on. So that the game actually isn't going to take very many turns, but you don't realize how fast the clock can be.
It comes out of nowhere a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It just gets you. I feel like Aether Vial is one of those cards that's kind of some of the glue that holds Legacy together. Like, there are all these cards that, prevent any type of archetype from just being too degenerate. Like, you could play this, super, super controlling deck that, just counters every single spell, and then, Jaces, does all that type of stuff. But then, I decided that deck was just going to be insane once, and I put it together. But then I realized that when opponents play Aether Vial, it's really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
And that it prevents people from doing certain things that aren't necessarily healthy for a format.
Yeah.
Another card like that might be any of the like dredge cards.
Can you see what he just entombed for? Is that a Blazing Archon or?
That is in fact a Blazing Archon.
Okay. So we saw that the attack went for 3, and next turn it's actually very reasonable for the attack to be 7.
Gerry's got a decision here. I mean, he can reanimate with force backup, but I mean it's pretty rough. Now we have to remember William has 2 Mutavaults in play. So he can crack back for a lot of damage.
This is true.
And those Mutavaults are unblockable. Luckily, Blazing Archon will prevent that from happening. And I think that Blazing Archon is just going to cold William's deck. William has a Jit, and that's it. And if he can't attack, well, that Jit's not going to get counters, and he has a Coral Helm Commander that can block.
I mean, he can't have a plan B. I'm going to deck you.
Sovereign?
I mean, Coral Helm Commander, I guess, like, it doesn't... none of this does anything. Eventually, Gerry's just going to, you know...
The thing doesn't fly yet, right?
He does.
Oh, okay.
Kill his opponent. Just draw enough reanimate effects.
Brainstorm.
Yep.
Gerry's got a handful of forces. That's a pretty nice hand to have when you have an Archon in play.
I mean, I'm not sure what can possibly go wrong here that he would have to worry about in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at the deck list, he has no way to get the Archon off the board. He cannot attack his opponent.
Oracle. New Oracle.
Yeah, Blazing Archon is one of those cards that was printed that was immediately just, oh well, it's a reanimate target.
Okay, so for
Plus
those of
9
you who are interested, if you go to the Star City Games live feed, the Twitter feed, I have just posted a link to the top 16 lists from the Standard. So there is a link to all of the top 16 from yesterday's Standard off of the Twitter feed that we have going in the regular coverage right now.
If you consider yourself an aggro player, I'd be sure to check out Pat's deck that won the event.
I'm really on board. I'd love to know.
It's an incredible deck.
Because that stuff's down the back.
The numbers seem absolutely perfect to me.
Immediately article. Oh, I'll just deck the guy.
This game is pretty much just slowed to a halt.
What?
I'm confused.
I think there was just a scoop.
Gerry just scooped?
No, the other way around.
Okay. I saw Gerry pick up his cards first, and I was very, very confused. It's like, wait, but there's no way for him to ever can attack.
Right.
Why is this happening?
Okay, from the board, there's a lot of possibilities for escape from that problem. Echoing Truth, Submerge, Sower of Temptation, and then he has, in addition to those cards, 3 anti-graveyard cards from 2 Tormod's Crypt and 1 Relic of Progenitus.
I mean, it's post-board, this matchup is completely different.
Very, very different. Now, obviously, an Iona that's ahead on the board, if there's no Vial in play, it is still going to wrap it up. But, you know, if there is a Vial in play, an Iona doesn't necessarily wrap it up.
I mean, Gerry's rocking some Firestorms.
Yeah, Firestorm solves a lot of problems.
Seems pretty good here. Yeah, big fan of Firestorm art. Like wild cats card. What else could Gerry bring in here? He has Pyroblast.
Pyroblast is still and always the best sideboard card ever.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he only has 1. I normally play 1 of it, like main.
Right.
Yeah. But it's actually interesting. I wonder how Gerry would have won that last game. I know that there was no way for him to lose, but I'm trying to think about how he would have won.
We are now taking sign-ups
Like
and
what he
sign-ins.
could have
This
done
is
to win
a
that game.
two-headed giant sealed event. You will receive
Inkwell
8
Leviathan.
packs of Scars of Mirrodin, and each of you will build a 40-card
Yeah.
deck.
I guess so.
I mean, that's actually, like, if William was willing to wait out the however many turns it would take to deck Gerry, that's a possibility. I mean, because Gerry is with the Entomb, with, I believe, Intuition, with a couple other cards, he definitely has eaten up more of his library.
So I had to assume you
But-
were going to be on.
I mean, that is a big thing to risk doing, to risk dropping the clock down to almost no time, to where it might not even work out that you actually are able to win the war over a Leviathan.
Oh yeah, I mean, he probably should have scooped as soon as he saw the Blazing Archon.
Yeah.
Just scooping like down the road after your board has developed like crazy since then, and Gerry just hasn't done anything, is like makes it more obvious that you have nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And that's probably
it's just obvious that you have nothing in general.
that's probably fair though, just to wait just a few turns, just to put on a little bit of a semi bluff. You know, I mean, it's actually a bluff because there's no real out, so it's a bluff. You know, but
There's no semi involved.
yeah. Let me take back
like
that
Grit.
little that little prefix.
It's like, they should win game 1. Let's see if they have enough hate.
I mean, looking at this, I think that William has a lot of good weapons to bring in.
Same club, one way or the other.
And
That would be the
conversely,
best. They'll win.
I feel like the weapons we're going to be seeing from Gerry, the Spell Pierce seems reasonable if you're fighting against Force of Will and Daze, just to push something through.
Okay.
The Pyroblast is going to be clearly really good
That
against
changes
anything.
everything.
And Firestorm is a very reasonable card for tossing away the stuff you're not going to want to actually cast anyway. You know, you not only get to potentially clear the board a little bit.
But you get to discard your reanimate targets.
Yeah, exactly. And so even if it gets, destroyed in a counterspell war, it still is a card that did some work that actually helps you out. This is Adrian Sullivan here with Star City Games Live, bringing you coverage live from the Kansas City Legacy Open Series.
And this is Jacob Van Lunen, and we are in round 3 of the Star City Games Legacy Open. We have Gerry Thompson playing against William Yowell. William Yowell is battling with a Merfolk deck today, and Gerry is playing Reanimator.
It would be a lot
Yeah.
better.
This is the second version of Reanimator we've seen today. Not necessarily
No.
the coverage, but
No,
just
okay.
talking
Two
to
changes to
people
that,
and
plus
talking about their
different
decks. Conley Wood's playing a Reanimator deck that looks really interesting to me. It plays Buried Alive and uses Phyrexian Devourer, Triskelion,
That's
and
gonna be IPW
Necrotic
level
Ooze.
6.
And it reanimates the Necrotic Ooze and then just
I
kills the
guarantee.
opponent with the Devourer Trike combo.
I'll keep this.
All right.
So as I wait for the players here to get going, I had been looking at the top 16 lists from yesterday in the Standard, and as I said a little bit ago, if you go to our Twitter feed right now, the Twitter feed in the coverage that we have of Kansas City, I did put up a link to the top 16 deck lists, and I would say one of the lists that caught my eye immediately is Anthony Eason, a known red player, and he's playing a devastating red deck, and he got 11th place with Devastating Summons Goblin Bushwhacker.
It means he went 8-2.
Yeah.
That's 8-2 is a good record.
Absolutely. In play right now, we just have the opening Aether Vial Force of Will fight happen.
Like, if it's
Force of Will losing a hapless researcher to get that Aether Vial from happening. Following up then with a Thoughtseize.
One island, just draw out of
And
it.
the shine on those sleeves makes it almost impossible for me to tell what those cards are. I think I see a Silvergill Adept, a Curse Catcher, maybe 2 Curse Catchers, and a Coilhelm Commander?
First catcher.
Is that a Coralhelm Commander or is that a second Adept?
That's a Curse Catcher that got discarded. Okay, I definitely see an Adept.
Trying to learn.
Thinking about the Adept, maybe, maybe not.
Restraints.
You know, I was like, ugh.
Yep.
And just to
I like that
clarify, the Twitter feed that it is in is Star City Games KC, which I'm putting the pound symbol there next to. My apologies for being a little unclear there. That's the. You can find that directly in the coverage on the left column. That pound SCGKC.
4 damage and 2.
Still 16?
Yep.
Sure, he kills a Curse Sketcher. Get him in the tomb. It's a nice little swords.
Careful study.
Yeah. Judge.
It's like Gerry's saying.
Gerbilson. Yeah, I thought it was something.
Discard the Yankee.
I thought Hapless Reacher. Why do they look the same?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Sure, have another force in hand?
And we get Inky and Minamo.
It's probably discarding the Yankee.
I mean, there's no reason not. I mean,
it could.
it's a Force of Will target, but
Firestorms actually have so much value in this
yeah,
matchup.
Firestorm. That's a card that I remember causing a turn 1 kill at a side event in Pro Tour New York, I believe 2000.
Turn 1 kill off Firestorm? Sounds pretty impressive.
Well, the one player goes turn
Stroke
1
him or something?
Jackal Pup, and then the other player goes Mountain, and he gets attacked on his turn 2 by Jackal Pup, and then the player goes Jackal Pup, and at the end of the turn, that player then, who hasn't taken his second turn yet, Firestorms for 5/5/5/5.
I mean, you losing 9 would have been fun.
Yeah.
I was wondering how it happened. Now I know.
Firestorm, notably, back in the day, was a card that was used in Goblin Welder decks. So, Welder players, just remember that there are these cards that exist that you can use to defend your strategy. Gerry Thompson's using these Firestorms to get cards in the grave, and getting cards in the grave is something a Welder deck likes to do.
It's true. It also helps a lot against decks like Fish. It's just such a well-positioned card against those types of decks. Against Goblins, a deck that people said might be harder. It's very good against them also. this game, he can choose to be on the reanimate Iona plan, and then he can just lock it up by firestorming afterwards.
And here we have a 5 damage coming in. Oh, make that 8.
William Yowell, as we see here in his face, he's a bit worried.
I mean, the firestorm here would be just absolutely devastating if it doesn't get dazed or spell pierced.
William has a force in hand.
I don't know if he has any other cards though. I think that's his second card. I think he had 1 card
Oh,
force.
I thought he had another card. You're probably right. I guess he was-
Three targets, 3 damage.
Maybe I'm wrong. Is there 2 cards there? Oh, there are 2 cards.
Yep.
It's a sour.
Oof. Ouch. And leveling it up. Threatening a kill next turn anyway.
I'm not surprised to see Gerry playing Reanimator.
This is
legacy
the last
format.
call for sign-up
Yeah.
for the second draft open. Again, this is
Very
last call
notorious
for
for saying
sign-up
things
for
like,
the second draft open.
What's better than a turn 2 Iona? Who can beat turn
He's a
2
good guy like
Iona?
that.
These are things that Gerry says all the time. Jerry's
Gosh, why would he do that?
Jerry's of the ilk.
Won the
Thinks
die
that,
roll, plays left first and
a
last
good
game.
draw from Reanimator is die unbeatable. And if your good draws are unbeatable, that puts you in a pretty good spot. Nobody wants to play against you, and you want to be the guy that nobody wants to play against.
I mean, I think that that's usually very, very true, but one of the things that always throws a kind of a monkey wrench into the works is when you have a true aggro control deck, being able to put down a clock plus disruption. We saw the power of that here. Even though he got his entire clock just cleaned with a firestorm, clearing the entire table, he just drops the Qualcomm commander, levels it, and then that subsequent turn kills him. I mean, of all of the decks that are positioned well against this kind of combo deck, generally aggro control, particularly an aggro control deck like Merfolk, seems to be the best position to fight that kind of war.
Sure, especially because they get to bring in a little bit of graveyard hate to go along with it.
Yeah.
I wonder how many time spiral decks are lurking around the room. I would actually go run.
I would, God, I really, really want to see some. I know that we were told by our print coverage manager and manager at large, Glenn Jones, says that he's going to be giving us some information later on about the top levels of the metagame, who's winning, and what we should be paying attention to in this event for the future, for future legacy events.
Your final standings are now posted. Leave these standings up for 2 minutes. After that, the standings will become final, and we will begin the top 8 draft.
Okay. So once again, we are here, and it is round 3 of the Star City Games Kansas City Legacy Open Series. I'm Adrian Sullivan.
And I'm Jacob Van Lunen.
And we're watching Gerry Thompson, the champion of this most recent Star City Games Invitational, who is playing his first round of the event. He's one of the very few players in this event that has buys, versus William Yowell, who is playing Merfolk. Gerry is with a Reanimator deck that I believe is of Gerry's own design, but it could very well be from someone else. Gerry is obviously a well-connected Magic player and has tons of friends who'd be willing to give him a deck list at the drop of a hat. There is a deck tech that goes into the specific details of Gerry Thompson's deck list that you can see in the print coverage of the event that is up by Glenn Jones. And we have the opening for Gerry here, Thoughtseize, which I think is one of the more powerful openings that Gerry can do in this matchup after sideboard. He's not in as much of a pure race as just making sure to try to get either a clock off the table or make it so that there's not the force of will or daze problem that he's going to be messing with him in subsequent turns. If the court
sees a hand like this,
Player Chris Miller.
if in his hand he has like an Entomb and a Reanimate to follow this up, he can just take that Curse Catcher and then just the end. You know?
Is that an Ancient Grudge in his hand?
That is an Ancient Grudge in his hand.
That is some respect. You can entomb that to get rid of an Aether Vial pretty quick, but still, that's respect for that Aether Vial. And Curse Catcher goes bye-bye. And there we have a Relic of Progenitus. Another good weapon for the Ancient Grudge to fight. No mana. That is a risk right here of playing such a low mana deck in general. Gerry only has 18 lands in his deck.
It's a little painful. Oh, he drew them sideboard and mountain. Literally the worst that he could have drawn. Better than no land, but very close to being as bad as drawing a non-land.
Good.
And right here, that would have been a good turn to see another land, but fortunately for him, it looks like Mutavault is the only clock that exists on the other side of the table.
Yeah. His opponent isn't really putting any pressure on him, kind of giving him a chance to draw out of this.
Yeah, I mean, they both are basically playing from a pretty weak position at this point. Now with 5 mana, he finally makes his first play by dropping the Coralhelm Commander.
Coralhelm Commander is such a powerful card.
Yeah, it is.
Played against a Japanese player in Pro Tour San Juan. He was playing Very Angels and Coralhelm Commanders, things like that, and this was I was at 2-0. I think he ended up doing pretty well. Crushed me, so.
And Coralhelm Commander is a card we've been seeing from players that aren't even Merfolk deck, just like what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
They're just using it as a means to shift into a more of an aggro control space from a deck that would normally be a control deck. And here we go, the second mana, Null Rod. Now he has another Null Rod in hand, but right now, that's still a painful loss because that Coralhelm Commander is going to be able to arc its way up.
That can get big.
pardon me, my bad. That Null Rod won't turn off the Coral Helm Commander. It's not the Cursed Totem that I was thinking it was. The Null Rod does turn off, though, the Relic of Progenitus. Yeah, it's not a Damping Matrix.
It's just artifacts.
Just artifacts. So just the Relic and any Tormod scripts that might find their way into play.
Contagion clasps, you know. Don't want any proliferating going on. Put more level counters on the Coral Helm Commanders. You could also proliferate up a Tangle Wire. That seems pretty good. I don't know.
I do not envy Gerry his position right here. There's a lot that has to go right for him to come back from this.
If you recall, yesterday, Gerry was looking very good to top 8 the tournament after the 7th round. He was 7-0 and first in the standings. But a 10-round tournament can be pretty cruel. And 8-2 is pretty bad.
And Gerry just had one of the most frustrating kinds of brainstorming into not only no land, but no shufflers and no new action of any real kind, which is essentially like saying my next 2 turns aren't going to happen.
Yeah.
He has
dead.
He has a line of plays that he can make that are going to result in him dying. So,
yes. Regardless. So. Everyone around lamenting the loss of Gerry Thompson. William played these games really well.
I agree.
You know, he never really like overextended into the Firestorms. He took his time. He was careful to win. He had a violent play. He was putting the dice on top of his deck. He was remembering triggers.
Your pod assignments are now being posted. If you are in the top 8 for draft open number 1, please report to
There's a Pyroblast
marked with the number 9.
That's a pretty nice Pyroblast there.
Once again, draft open number 2.
You might even buy Gerry enough
now
time
being posted.
to not die. Next 2
Those
turns,
are
he has a second
the
mutable,
in the corner of the
so
room.
it's over.
On my right side of the Star City Games live coverage booth.
There comes in 6 to knock it to 4.
And Gerry draws one of the cards he brainstormed into, and this is
Draft open number 1, top 8. Please report to draft table number 9. A judge will be.
He's going to reanimate, I believe, the Coral Helm Commander.
You are in the correct seat.
Reanimate Coral Helm Commander.
Well, no, he's entombing.
Is that Entomb? I'm sorry.
shuffling.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is Entomb. I misread that.
Yeah.
My bad.
Check the seating assignment.
Actually, reanimate. I don't think you can hit your opponent's creatures. It's not an animate dead. Not an animate dead. Okay. So Entomb.
I like Animate Dead. Why are we
To
playing
make
that
sure
card?
you will be sitting in the correct seat.
So now he has his draw phase.
It's pretty rough. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, what he can do is he can draw a Firestorm, which is not there.
Alright, that's
That'll
like
do
one
it.
of those.
Yeah.
Now, I really like Merfolk against decks like this. Merfolk really seems to suffer when it's playing against true aggro
Works out fine
decks.
if you like don't get wasted.
You know, they're in those matchups.